And now I'm excited to introduce you to our next presenter. Welcome, Mr. Mike Oakes, Senior Solutions Architect at Atempo. Mike, are you there?
Yes, I am, David. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for being on. Take it away.
Right. So, hey, well, thank you, and thank you to the ActualTech team for inviting Atempo to participate today. And also, everybody that's on, I want to say thank you. I know we're going pretty late in the game here, but thanks for sticking with us. Really appreciate it, and I hope everyone's staying healthy in our current environment today. So, as Dave mentioned, my name is Mike Oakes. I'm a Senior Solutions Architect with Atempo. I've been in the compute and storage industry now for well over 35 years. I know I'm dating myself there. But what I'd like to do today, if I could, is a brief introduction to Atempo, and then follow it a little bit closer look at some of our disaster recovery and protection products. So real quickly, who's Atempo? So Atempo, we bring to bear almost 30 years now of experience in the field of data protection and management. As you can see by the slide, of course, 2,000 plus customers, 2,200 plus employees worldwide. But we enable organizations to preserve their data ecosystems, right, regardless of that data set size or its location, or even that organization size. And our solutions, as you see here, protect, store, move, and retrieve businesses, basically any asset, anywhere, anytime, as long as we have a connection to it somehow, we can facilitate movement on it. These are, I don't want to preface this here, we are a software solution provider, right? You can use your own hardware. You can use VMs. We have solution set guidelines we help scope with, so you can build out your hardware as needed to fit the solution data sets you're trying to build. And one quick thing I know some of you are probably thinking is, why did I mention movement and store and movement as part of our product line? And the reason being is today, protecting for future accessibility of your data is critical, especially in that right now as we're in that work from anywhere environment, right? And I will discuss more how actually now movement of data or synchronization of data is becoming a very big facet of data protection and disaster recovery. So that being said, I want to step back for a second because I know you guys have listened to a lot of information today and a lot of great presenters, but I wanted to say one thing real quickly. One size does not fit all for disaster recovery. And we just put a small little representation up here. So you see an SMB, small to medium business. This could be someone that's, a couple hundred terabytes, maybe a petabyte. They don't need to be immediately available. Maybe they need to be up in half a day or a day, where they can put something locally to get them up just partially up to run production and get back to customers, and then bring the rest back from something that's either on tape, cloud, some other type of medium. One thing I will say with disaster recovery, we like to stress all the time, air gap protection is critical. For this type of ransomware you hear and the other attacks you see, having a separate copy somewhere else is always a good DR business practice. The other side you see compared to that Fortune 500 company, they need to be up right away, right? They may have 4, 5, 6, 9 SLA uptime requirements. So having a system that, one, runs in production, and two, is either mirroring or backing up to another set of disks, as you see off to the right here, while also doing that air gap protection to cloud or tape or disk or something else somewhere else, is critical. Different requirements, both are DR, but they need to fit that environment's workflow. So real quickly here, what is the Miria Portfolio? And when I discuss these, I call these our pillars. These are basically the 4 pillars of Miria. Now you see at the top at the 12 o'clock position, this is our battle-tested backup software. This appliance and software appliance has been around now for almost 28, 30 years. It's tried and true. It's used around the world. It's coupled, though. You can also have, see at the bottom at the 6 o'clock position, Miria for archiving, right? Take a single snapshot of a point in time for my archives, put it somewhere. Well, I'm also doing, for my DR purposes, I'm doing backups and incremental backups. So we're going to talk more about those and why they're important in a minute. But that movement piece I also talked about earlier. You see at the 9 o'clock position here, Miria for data moving, right? I can use this to actually replicate data to another site, move data from where other people are located, maybe to converge it to a central backup repository site, or actually back up those appliances where they sit anywhere in the world. So that's part of, also an integral part of a DR solution plan. The last one you see is Miria for migration at the 3 o'clock position. This is for more of a not a perpetual, but a rental-based fee because you're collapsing infrastructures. I want to take new appliances and bring them into my facility and collapse maybe multiple storage appliances into one. Maybe it's faster, bigger, has analytics in it now, which is a big thing. But being able to take all that data and put it somewhere and then shut down that primary storage. So we're not really talking about migration today. It's just part of the pillar suite from the products. We're going to be more backup and data moving. So real quickly, why did I preface those four parts of the pillars of the appliance before we got started here with this slide? So, 5-7 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, we took a look at the market, specifically the unstructured data market, right? The massive amount of content being both created and consumed. And there need to be a way to bring dissimilar architectures together from not only just a backup and archive perspective, but how do I keep them in sync and how do I share data? So to that end, you'll see some bullets here. It talks about, storage supports, SSD and other things. Yes, everybody can put an SSD in their box today and be some type of hybrid storage. We more wanted to look at hybrid architectures. How do I bring homogeneous appliances, workflows, into a heterogeneous architecture, right? Multiple vendors, multiple appliances, different file systems, and we're a file system-based product, not block. Using cloud, right? On-premise storage, air gap protection I mentioned earlier. How do you bring all of these together in a single appliance to give you the best protection as well as give you the ease of use from now until 5, 10, 20 years from now? We need to recall that particular piece of data, that repository for DR. At the bottom, you see a couple little dots here on their presentation. Right? That's what's coming, because nobody knows exactly what's going to come 10 years from now. But what we did take a look at is we thought these are the 5 key requirements to bring in to that the heterogeneous architecture I was talking about. Large data protection's always been there, but it's no longer, a petabyte or a couple of petabytes. We're talking multi-petabytes, 25, 50, hundreds of petabytes now need to be archived, backed up, protected in some form. That was an important feature to have within the product. As well as it says hybrid storages, I'm going to go back to hybrid architectures. Taking those dissimilar homogeneous infrastructures and building into a heterogeneous workflow for your environment. That availability, you need to be able to get to that data. You can plan forever for a disaster recovery, but if you can't access that data when you need it, it does you no good. You have to have a product that's available 24/7, 365, and built to have in HA and redundancy and so forth within the product line. I'm going to skip over with migration with the exception of saying it also powers, the same engine that does migration also powers the copy, the synchronization, and the movement functionality. The last part. This goes back to those dots I was just talking about. Flexibility and scalability. The product needed to be flexible enough when new storage modalities and new storage appliances came down the pike a couple of years from now or tomorrow to be able to call that into the appliance without having to rewrite, without having to actually do a forklift upgrade of your entire infrastructure. Modular approach, modular design, coupled with scalability. So when my workflow changes, because most small business want to become large and most large want to become Fortune 500, how can I scale up my environment? Simply by adding, and I'm going to talk about data movers in a second. Once you have our product in place, data movers come free. It's just a matter of putting the hardware or the VM in place. You already have the software. There's no extra feature. You increase bandwidth. You'll increase resiliency by adding data movers. So real quickly, the architecture. You'll see the bottom left here, or the middle left here. You'll see a Miria. This is a server. Now, you can have one server. It's attached to some storage. We use PostgreSQL for our database. You can also, from an HA perspective and for DR, have another complete server either sitting next to it or across the street or across the country. You can put these into an HA-built solution where you can have one take over should the other fail, and should any one site go down, you have a complete database copy because they're kept in sync on the other side. So truly HA for DR, which is getting very important these days. The other thing you'll see here from the architecture perspective, and again, we're all software, you'll see things we call data movers. And these are agents. We term them as agents. And their name does exactly what they say, right? They facilitate movement from data, from point A to point B. In this case, you'll see we have a primary and a secondary site, as well as you have some internal data movers. So data movers can be placed at a site. They can be placed at different sites. Should you need to do encryption in flight by putting data movers at 2 locations, we'll actually encrypt on basically the read of the data, decrypt on the other side, and put it down to that piece of storage. And I do see a question that came in, do we support multiple clouds? Yes, Azure, Amazon. We also do Google. So we do basically all the major 3s, cloud and Cloud Swift if you want to do an S3 type appliance as well, like on-prem S3. Back to our data movers here. So as I said, they facilitate all movement. They also can be pooled or segregated. I can pool data movers to move. Maybe I want to keep HR and finance separate because of business reasons from any kind of movement interaction with my production data. You can pool 2 different types of data movers or 2 different groups of data movers or multiple groups to facilitate movement anywhere you need to, as long as we have some type of connection medium to that particular piece of storage. So that being said, pooling data movers. I want to get into something with data movers here, and this is some of the technology under the hood that we do to improve the user experience and get you protected, your data protected, that much quicker. The first thing is those data movers. I can parallelize tasks. What do I mean by this is I can actually, while I'm looking for data, I can actually have some algorithms in play that say after so much time, after I've scanned so much data that needs to be moved, or so many files that need to be acted upon and be moved, we'll actually fire up a sub-job, and I can have multiple sub-jobs. I'm going to talk about those in a second. And they will fire up and get placed on a data mover. It'll start moving data, even while we're still looking for data. And we'll continue to do that. In that first scenario, I had 3 external data movers. I may fire up a job for backup or archive that says, hey, I want to put 9 sub-jobs with it. What will happen is if I pull those data movers together, I will then, when I start my parallelization runs, I'll put 3, if I have enough workflow going, 3 different tasks on each of those data movers. I'll have 9 threads running and parallelized across 3 data movers. And then when one finishes, we look for more data and pick it up and start moving more data again. That's coupled with the multi-threading. Not only can we parallelize across the data movers, but internal to the data movers. And data movers are typically going to be, they're not big boxes. We're talking about a 1U, 2 CPU, X amount of cores, and some memory. So it's a pretty standard box. We're going to take those cores and turn them into copy engines. So now I've got a multi-threading those tasks on a particular data mover, and then I've parallelized across the data movers as well as while I'm looking for data. We do this for 2 particular reasons. One, to get the data moved from point A to point B as fast as possible without impacting the user experience. I'm going to talk about how we do that next. And 2, right, protection, your lifeblood of your data. We want it taken care of and protected as soon as possible. Walking a file system and looking for data is not the same as having it protected. Now, how do we increase that throughput while reducing that user impact or that production flow impact? If we're using something that we can talk to the APIs on, maybe it's some type of NAS like an Isilon or a Cumulo, or maybe it's a file system, TPFS. We have one built. We built our own for Lustre. What we can do is we can take a snapshot, or in the case of Lustre, kernel change aware server that's gathering all those change notifications. We can start to build a list. The first time we walk a file system and we do a snapshot, we validate that snapshot. After that time, we don't walk it again unless it's absolutely necessary. The next time you have to go do a run, whether it's 5 minutes from now or 2 hours from now or 2 days, we'll trigger a snapshot. Fast scan, which you see at the bottom, is going to tell that appliance, I need you to build me a change list of anything that's different between those 2 snapshots. That'll be imported back into that agent, that Miria server, and that will then disperse it to the data movers for movement. No longer walk the file system. Walks that could take days in multi-petabyte file systems now take minutes. And again, protect that data as quickly as possible. We've got it moved already to the backup site or pushed to cloud or pushed to disk well before most other products on the market. So real quickly, this is just more representation of what happens during a incremental or full scan than an incremental. Like I said, first time we walk a file system, we're seeding data, so to speak, like looking for data to move. We're going to do an entire walk of that file system and compare it to a snapshot. At which point after that, you'll see, notice in green, those are the data that's changed. We'll only move that data that's changed. We'll also propagate deletes. And I want to talk about that in one sec. And that'll continue on. We kind of call this backup with incremental forever. Maybe you want to do a backup once a month and incrementals for 30 days, and then do one the next month. Or maybe you want to do it every 6 months. You can choose that granularity, that regularity of the backup, and take incrementals in between of the data. The deletes you see there at the bottom, little X's represented there, you can actually decide, you know what? After somebody's deleted the data on actually source storage or my production storage, I don't want it deleted right away. I'm going to want to wait 30 days or 60 days or 90 days. You can do this by policy. And we'll hold the deletes of that stuff out of the backup, out of the database and out of the actual backup until we reach that retention point, and at which time we'll trigger a maintenance task that will go in and do that work, delete those instances. Now, coupled with this feature, I just said the word instances, you can have multiple instances of the same file stored in your backup, and you can recover those. Should someone delete one from a Wednesday and you want to bring that one back, or maybe they want that one back from 3 Wednesdays ago, you can slide through a timeline, pick a file, pick a folder, pick an entire backup, and pull it back at that particular instance in time. So real quickly, I wanted to talk about, because I know we don't have a lot of time here. Right now, we see this Miria for backup on the screen. This is an architecture representation of something we call SnapStore. What SnapStore does is it takes advantage of native APIs within the appliances where we can actually facilitate a backup in such a way it's called one-to-one. So you have your production storage here in the middle. I have my users. Across the bottom, I have my finance or my financials. Of course, AI is part of every workflow just about now. You got your production workflow, and of course, your executives taking a look at, what do the business analytics look like and so forth. Now, during this time frame, you can actually be using SnapStore and FastScan to move data to that NAS backup repository to the right. Now, I said we can do this in a one-to-one fashion. What it allows us to do is that backup will look exactly like the production copy. The reason why we do this, in the event, should something go drastically wrong, you lose connection, network goes down, God forbid there's a fire, some kind of mass destruction at your production site, you have a full copy now residing at your DR location. Maybe it's in the same facility, hopefully it's not a site problem, or it's a different facility altogether. But what will happen here is, and part of the disaster planning, is basically your users can be pushed over to that DR site with your IT team. Maybe it's from DNS, maybe conical names, whatever it is, that method of access and pointing to an access point, they can shift it all to the other side. Now, what happens is you're back up and running production. Maybe it's limited, maybe it's full, depending on how you built your DR policy. But you've taken the pressure off, at least for the immediate need, right? Find out what happened to my production site. Maybe it was a fire, maybe it was something else. I need to reconstitute that particular production site to get it back up and running. Well, actually, you can be doing that at the same time you're running production from that DR site. Once you've reconstituted the hardware, you can rebuild the file system or files to a point in time back to that production system, all while you stay in production, all via the SnapStore, using snapshotting and the other features on board the appliance to move that data back. And again, once you're back, it's a simple matter of, okay, now repoint back to my production system. We'll re-engage the SnapStore replication going the other direction with our backup, and we'll go back to backing up to our NAS repository. So it keeps you online and meets a lot of times those SLA requirements that require multiple up 9 times, so to speak. So real quickly, if any of you remember ADA before Miria, even a little bit with Miria, we used to have like a thin, thick GUI. And I wanted to bring this one up and show you guys this. We've now switched and we're putting the migration, the archiving, the backup into an HTTP REST-based GUI. Now, you can get to this anywhere in the world. You can program to it too. There's going to be a full HTTP REST API that you can program to. You notice here, I kind of have, it's a couple archives, a couple of backups. There's the bottom right there, 1.98 gigabytes is me basically. And what I've done is I've decided I want to go look at that particular backup. And you notice here there's a timeline across the top that I can scroll back and forth with, and files will go in and out of the timeline. This is time navigation. As I slide this around, I happen to want to see a particular movie called Diner down here at the bottom. What I can do then is I can click on that. You notice I have multiple instances. I can say I want that first instance from February 9th. I go ahead and I click on that one. What will next happen is it'll bring up, okay, it's in this location. Where do you want to put it? And this goes back to putting data anywhere at any time. If we have access to some piece of storage, we can take it back to the original piece of storage, or we can put it somewhere else in the world. As long as there's a connection, 99% of the time, we can get there and facilitate data movement. You go ahead, in this case, I'm going to select the Windows box, and you'll notice there's an add button. I tell it to add, and I just validate the bucket. Once I do that, the backend Miria interface will take over. It will go and move that information. It's all logged within the logs. As you can see, there's logs, and there's activity off to the left there that you can look at. It'll give you a complete representation of what happened. Your data will be moved. The job will finish in green. Send you a report if you so ask for one that it completed that particular job function. So real quickly, I try to do this. I know we're short on time today, and you guys have been listening to a lot of people, but I want to finish up with, why Atempo? So as I mentioned early on, right, almost 30 years now of experience, data protection, preservation, movement, and management. Whether everyone you've listened to today, whether it's us or it's somebody else, whoever you go with for this type of implementation, you need to be able, one, to trust them and be confident they understand DR workflows and environments and where to miss or avoid the pitfalls, right? Avoid the mistakes. We've done this for 30 years now. We're pretty good at doing this. We know where those pitfalls and mistakes are and how to avoid them. Also, what we do bring to the market that others don't is that range of fast-scan and data movement technologies. Moving that data while still looking for it and getting it protected that much quicker is an important part of DR. As soon as you reduce your exposure, the simpler your life becomes, right? And then finally, with our feature sets, 99% of the time, I'll say, maybe 90% of the time, not 99. With our feature sets and our price point, the value we bring actually is usually below the competitors in the marketplace. With that, I'd like to turn it back over to David. I want to thank everyone for your time today. It's great talking to you.
Excellent presentation. This is a really innovative product. I bet a lot of folks out there haven't heard about before. So thank you so much for educating us on the power of Miria from Atempo. We do have some questions for you from the audience. While we take those questions, I'm just going to bring up this poll for everyone out there that says, what additional information would you like about the Atempo solution? So, Mike, a few questions here I wanted to start off with. One is, what about deduplication? How does that fit in with this?
We don't do a cross-file system deduplication. It's more file-level deduplication with our version of a zip or a lib.
Got it. Okay. And then what about customizing the dashboard or reporting? What kind of data like that can be pulled out?
So you can customize to an extent the GUI I just showed at the end of the presentation here. There's another one that's coming at the end of the month this month that allows you to build your own dashboards, look at data where it's placed. It's an analytics package that's come as an add-on to Miria.
Excellent. Yeah, that sounds cool. Another question they're asking about data management and archiving, over time with hybrid cloud. Do you have any recommendations on the best practices or best approach for that, and could this product help?
Yeah, so from how's data management over time in the cloud especially, the first thing I'm going to say is check out end-to-end what the SLA is, not just putting your data up or bringing it back. Everybody always talks about it. It can get expensive. Now, what we can do with our product is you can reach into different clouds, even if we didn't put the data up there. Take a look at what's there, pick and choose which data you want, move data between clouds if you needed to facilitate that, or even within a cloud. I can move locations within cloud, like maybe Azure Blob, right? So I do it on the backside, put my infrastructure in the cloud. There's no egress charges, right? I stay and move inside that cloud module.
That could be very powerful. I like the idea of that. Let's see, excellent. I know we're running out of time here in our time window. I mean, if folks want to get started with this product, what's the best way for them to learn more and kind of see it for themselves?
So there's two things. Just go to www.atempo.com. You can get a hold of one of the individuals there. My name is in the presentation. We get started. We can actually we do we call a whiteboard session. Now, of course, everybody does them, over a Zoom session or a chat session. But we have questionnaires that we can help you size things, learn more about the product, as well as the product comes with a 15-day temp license, so you can actually install it, play with it, get to understand it. We can help you along with that so you can see if it fits your workflow and how best to optimize it.
Very cool. Yeah, this sounds very powerful. And I'm sure that seeing is believing, with a personal demo like that or trying it out for 15 days. So excellent presentation, Mike. Thank you so much for being on the event today.
All right, guys. Thank you. Hope everyone has a great day.